Before you dive into this mystical story, subscribe to our channel. We tell stories that make your heart swoon. Support us so we can continue to share exciting and thrilling stories with you. The Adebayo family, tired of the bustling city, moved to the countryside in search of peace and quiet. The house they found stood on a hill surrounded by dense forests. The sun, penetrating through the crowns of the trees, played on its walls as if inviting them to enter. The air around was saturated with the scents of nature, fresh pine resin, damp earth and wildflowers. A light breeze moved the leaves, creating the illusion of a living whisper. The place seemed to have been created for a new, peaceful life. "It's perfect," Alma said, taking a full breath. She felt like she was starting a new chapter of her life. But the house immediately made it clear that it wasn't so welcoming. When the family stepped inside, they were greeted by the soft light of the many candles arranged in different corners of the room. They flickered like little living things, casting warm glints on the old wooden walls. But it was immediately clear that these candles were no ordinary candles. Alma reached out to extinguish one of them, but the flame wouldn't go out. She blew harder, but it didn't help. Her hand trembled, and for a moment she felt as if the candle was resisting her efforts. "What's with these strange candles?" she whispered, feeling a chill run down her spine. The smell of wax mixed with something sharp and spicy began to fill the room. Kofi tried to find an explanation. It must be some old magic. Just a piece of decor. But even he felt something about the house was haunting, as if the candlelight hid more than it illuminated. The first night in the house brought unease. The silence the family had been looking for proved to be frightening. The forest outside the window seemed to hold its breath, and the shadows cast by the candles seemed too shifting. Alma awoke to a strange sound. It was a soft, almost caressing whisper coming from the living room. She threw on her robe and walked out of the bedroom. The candles she had tried to extinguish before bed were burning again, their light brighter than before. The shadows from the furniture, from the walls, from her own figure were moving. They stretched, they curved, as if they had a life of their own. "Who's there?" Alma's voice trembled, but she couldn't bring herself to look away. One of the shadows suddenly broke away from the wall and slowly approached her. Her form resembled a human figure, but her face was blank. Alma froze, feeling fear take over her mind. "This is their home," came a quiet voice, like a whisper of wind in a closed room. The next morning, Alma told Kofi what had happened during the night. He listened to her, frowning, but trying not to show concern. "You must be tired," he said, but his voice sounded unconvinced. However, the children, Adi and Kemi, began to complain. "Mom, we heard footsteps in the night," Kemi said, her eyes filled with fear. "Someone was walking in the hallway. And I saw a shadow outside the window," Adi added, in a trembling voice. But there was no one there. Kofi decided to check the house personally. In the evening he went around every corner, opened closets, looked under beds, but found nothing unusual. Only the candles were still burning, despite his attempts to extinguish them. "It's just a coincidence," he said, though his heart clenched with worry. On the third night, the family finally realized that something inexplicable was happening in the house. The candles burned even brighter, and their light took on a reddish tint, as if they were soaked in blood. The shadows didn't just move anymore, they came alive. They became clearer, taking on the shapes of people. One of the shadows stood right in front of Alma. Its figure was tall, with long arms that reached for her. "Go away," said a voice full of deafening anger. Kofi heard a loud bang and ran out of the bedroom. Alma stood in front of him, her face pale and her eyes wide with terror. "We can't stay here," she whispered, grabbing the children's hands. But when Kofi tried to extinguish the candles, the flames flared so brightly that they illuminated the entire house. Shadows gathered around the family, their movements fluid but menacing. "This is their house," whispered Alma, her voice trembling. The family jumped out of the house in the middle of the night. The air outside was fresh, but it smelled damp and mossy, as if the forest itself was trying to hide the truth from them. When they turned around, the windows of the house burned brightly and the silhouettes inside moved as if in a dance. The shadows waved at them as if inviting them back. The smell of wax and spicy herbs still lingered in the air, like a reminder of what they had left behind. What powers do you think lived in this house? Write your theories in the comments and be sure to subscribe to our channel to hear more goosebump-inducing stories.